Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, coming to you on the Friday edition of The Yard from beautiful Charlottesville, Virginia. Made the trek out here. It's about 12 hours, and that's no hill for a stepper. I don't mind traveling and getting out going. All those trips to New Mexico have made a 12-hour drive feel like a skip across a pond. But all that understood, I don't know how long we go today. But I want to make sure you guys are aware of what my plans are. I'm going to be here for 3 nights. So that's, let's see, I don't know. But anyway, my plan is to give you a Boneyard every night to kind of recap the day and preview the next day. And I'll do that at night here from the hotel so you can stay abreast. We won't do a top 10 list during our regional coverage, but I wanted to kind of let you guys know I had promised you a bonus show. I'm actually planning to do one tomorrow night and Saturday night, and then we'll see what happens Sunday. If it goes deep into the night Sunday, if we have to play 2 games on Sunday, I'll do one for you Sunday. So we'll just take it a day at a time, but you're going to get a preview of the next day's events and a review of the previous day's events. So we're going to talk more about St. John's today. Again, no top 10 list this weekend. We'll get caught up on that. I know many of you love that, but also too, when we're trying to just kind of get episodes up, I just want to stick to the facts sometimes. So I don't know if we go, maybe an hour or so today. We'll see how things go. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit tired. But we're going to talk about St. John's today. We're going to talk about what to expect. There has been a bit of a change in their pitching plans. We thought it was going to be Pesco. It looks like it's not going to be Pesco. We'll be another right-hander, so we're going to break him down today and kind of look. The notes came out from St. John's today. They listed a different probable starter than what we expected. We know we're going to start Cal Steven. That's been announced by the Mississippi State Baseball official account. And so I think that's a good thing for us because, number one, St. John's is not a big, powerful team. Cal likes to work up in the zone. I think you're going to see a lot of routine fly balls. And when Cal is on his game, that's what we're getting. Strikeouts, routine fly balls to the outfield. So that's how things stand, and we'll dig into that here a little bit. We'll kind of look around the conference and kind of preview the day of how I think those games are going to go. So let's go ahead and get started and thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. I love Bulldog Burger Company. When I'm away from Starkville, I kind of crave Bulldog Burger Company because if I want a good restaurant quality hamburger, I can't find a better one than I find in Starkville, Mississippi. Now, 3 great locations to serve you, and I've eaten at all of them. They're all fantastic. Of course, University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go out and have those spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. In addition to that, you can peruse that great menu. I'm going to recommend a great restaurant quality hamburger. Start with the Bulldog if you're a newbie to Bulldog Burger Company. But if you're a regular, maybe it's time to kind of walk on the wild side a little bit. Maybe get the Freshman 15, right? Maybe get the Good Morning Burger. There's a lot of good options there. I've had them all. And maybe you're not feeling like a burger today. Maybe the kids do. You say, you know what, Steve? I think I want to eat a salad. You can't find a better one than that BLT salad. I like it grilled. You may like it fried. I don't know your needs. I don't know your taste. I'm from South Mississippi. So whatever salad I get is going to get ranch dressing on it. And they do a great job with all that. Get dessert to go, whether that be a chocolate shake or that Shipley's bread pudding. You just simply can't go wrong with it. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. Okay. We touched on this a little bit, and I want to go over a little bit more in depth. I won't spend a lot of time on the schedule, but I just want to talk about some things that kind of jump out when you look at their schedule. Of course, RPI is right there around 51. This is a very solid Big East team. And the Big East team only gets 2 teams in the field. That's the regular season champions out of UConn. They were upset in the Big East tournament. And then, of course, the winners of the Big East tournament, the automatic qualifier, St. John's. I don't know that St. John's would have made the field had they not made that run in the Big East tournament. But they're hot right now. And so here we are. I did speak to a beat reporter from the New York Post, and he tells me, hey, they don't see a lot of big crowds down there because there's so much competition, for your entertainment dollar. A lot of Yankees and Mets fans in the area, so there's just not a lot of big crowds for college baseball. And so I wonder a little bit how they're going to handle the atmosphere. Well, they handled it really well against Florida. I want to go back and look at this game just a little bit. Because, listen, Florida, it really wasn't Florida this year. But I think when we all think back to that opening weekend, what a big surprise it was that St. John's went down there and beat Florida. So many people had such high expectations for this Florida team. And they do make the tournament. And they may make a run in the tournament. They have a ton of talent. And it's a new season in many respects because everything that mattered up until last week no longer matters. But looking back at this this trip to Gainesville, and Florida was ranked number 2 in the country, right? And so these guys at St. John's were jacked up, and they went right to work. I mean, right to work. Guys, it was a 7-0 ball game in favor of St. John's before anything happened. And the starter in that ball game is the same starter that we're expected to see on Friday, Xavier Caholson. And so we're going to break him down a little bit more too. But Sam Meddert gets a save there. But Cade Fisher was the opening day pitcher for Florida. And Kevin O'Sullivan, that's his pedigree, is pitching. And so he's not going to just trot a guy out there that he doesn't believe in, especially in the in the season opener. Pretty crazy, right? But you start running this thing down, and we talked about Keenan the catcher, how he's a big league prospect. He gets an RBI double in the first. They come right back behind him, and Samet gets a single to drive in. Keenan makes it 2-0. And then they get into second inning, and they get those guys on the ropes a little bit, and they get the big hit. Scavelli doubles to left, 2-run score. Mayberry, after that, hits a sac fly, makes it a 5-0 ball game. It's nuts, man. It's nuts down in Gainesville. And then in the third inning, Brienza gets a 2 RBI triple to make it 7-0. And then next thing you know, Florida kind of starts chipping away a little bit. They get 3 in the third. So now all of a sudden it's 7-3. You think, okay, we're good. You start getting a hold here. And then Guy with an RBI sac fly in the fourth makes it a 7-4 ball game. So you're in striking distance. And then Shelton with a home run in the fifth. You're just down 2 runs and 4 innings to play. And then Florida could get no closer. And give the guys from St. John's credit. You want to start adding some insurance runs. They did. They get a home run in the 8th. And then next thing you know, the wheels fall off there in the inning, and Florida walks in a run to make it 9-5. But looking up and down this order, there were 11 hits in this ball game, and 4 different players for St. John's had multiple hits. So it's not like one guy just kind of carried the team. They were clearly prepared to play Florida. I don't know if Florida was prepared to play them, but they jumped on them pretty good here. And looking at your pitching numbers, I mean, listen, that Florida lineup doesn't have the length that I think many people anticipated. But what's interesting is Caholser, even though he gets to win, he works 5 innings, allows 7 hits and 5 runs, also had 4 walks and just a 1 strikeout. That, to me, is significant. And yes, it's early in the year, only threw 69 pitches, which is nice. But you look at this here, and you're giving up an inning, a run per inning. And I understand that pitching's ahead of hitting that early, but guys, this is St. John's from the Big East against the number 2 team in the country at the time. Now, granted, Florida was overrated, but it is clear to me that St. John's was not intimidated. They won't be intimidated by us either. And again, they jumped on Cade Fisher, who went just 2 innings, allowing 6 runs on 5 hits, struck out 4, walked 2. And then they get to Ryan Slater. Knocked him around a little bit, but only gives up to 1 run. Fisher Jameson gave up 2 runs. And then towards the end there, they kind of pieced some things together. But just couldn't get close. It's like you make a game of it, and then you can't climb back over the hill to really get over the hole you dug early on. And, of course, the second 2 games of the series were rained out. But that's a pretty loud win for St. John's, because it is SEC competition. But the thing that jumps out to me really about this is preparation, right? It's preparation, and you go into an SEC venue against a team ranked in the top 5, and you show them absolutely no respect. That's important. They did go down and play that series at Houston and lose 2 out of 3. And, of course, Houston didn't prove to be what some people thought they'd be early in the year. Now, I want to look at one more game with them, and that's going to be Texas. And then we'll take a quick look at what they did in the Big East tournament. At the time, Texas was ranked 15th in the country. Now, both of these Power 5 teams they played and earned one win and one loss against did not live up to their billing. But again, St. John's starts early in this ball game. They get up 1-0, then it's down 2-1. They bounce back in the third to make it a 3-2 ball game. And from there, it was pretty much all Texas. And so what that tells me, again, is the preparation piece. And again, it's Keenan in the middle of this thing again, right? Keenan up there, with the RBI sack fly. But the reality of it is these guys have gone in and played a couple of teams with a lot of tradition, and the guys that had a lot of hype this year. And St. John's absolutely didn't fall for it. Now, Texas got after them when it's all said and done. I mean, Texas puts up a ton of runs against these guys. It ends up being a 15-4 ball game. It did go 9 innings. I guess the 10-run rule was not in effect because Texas scored 5 there in the 7th, and then they played the whole thing out, probably just trying to get some reps for some guys. But you start working through this, and I think it's pretty safe to say, even though these guys, this is their first time back in the tournament in 5 years, they had 3 losing records in 4 years. Last year they finished 2 games over 500. And so trending in the right direction, but a lot of these guys are expected to be back. It's not like that you've got a senior-laden team here that's kind of figuring some things out. There are some pieces on this team that are pretty young. Evan Chaffee, we mentioned him, he's a left-hander. He started that game, only went 3 innings. I don't know that we'll see him. If we take care of business on Friday, I suspect that we won't see him, and somebody else will. But, Texas, again, kind of pitchback committee here, but a lot of offensive swings for them that found baseballs. But that's interesting to me. Again, a lot of these teams that come in from G5 conferences, they come in with a chip on their shoulder and think, you know what, we were good enough to play in the Power 5 conference and we didn't get recruited to do so. And so we're taking this personally. And I think that the St. John's team will come out with a chip on their shoulder. I think it's so important for Cal to get a clean inning first. Again, that doesn't decide ball games, but you don't want to give these guys any hope, right? You don't want them to come out and think, hey, yeah, we can play with Mississippi State. You want to go out there, get a clean first inning, find a way to get some runs on the board, and let Cal pitch from ahead. I think that's the most significant thing in this ball game. Let him pitch from ahead because when you're up a couple runs, you can really pound the strike zone. And again, this is a team that's not really known for its power, and so you can afford to take some chances and play up in this one. But looking at the pitching numbers for our expected starter now, and it is interesting to me. Maybe because Pesco didn't have a good start last week, maybe that's what they're thinking. Is like, hey, we're going to ride with with another guy here. So Xavier Caholser, 9-2 on the year. He has had 14 appearances, 11 starts, and 3.61 ERA, which is second on the team. But let's work through here and just kind of see what it looks like for him. He is a right-handed pitcher, wears number 33, and they have some length. They really do. Pesco's 6'8", Caholser 6'5", but he is a bit of a string being 175 pounds. But it's just looking at him, did not pitch in 2022. He is a redshirt sophomore. Last year made 9 starts for them and had a 3-0 record with a 2.56 ERA. So it's not like all of a sudden he's kind of found himself. He kind of showed up after that redshirt year and made some things happen. Let's see if we can't find our numbers for this year. Wouldn't that be grand? Yeah, so looking at our numbers for this year, he had a really good game against Georgetown on May 25th. But he has worked deeper in the ball games, of course, had 10 strikeouts and 7 innings pitched against Winthrop. And granted, it's Winthrop. But again, what that tells me is this is a guy that's not afraid to challenge in his own. He did not walk anybody against Georgetown in that May 25th game and allowed just 1 hit in the game. But looking back, again, he gets the W over Florida, even though the numbers were not especially impressive. He takes a loss against Houston, just works 4 innings into that ball game, allows 5 runs on 4 hits. There's one of his 2 losses. He gets Sam Houston, 6 hits and 6 scoreless innings, and 5 punch-outs against no walks. Really a nice day for him. He gets Hofstra, a win over those guys, allows just 1 run in that game. Ryder, 7 hits in 5 innings. So this is a guy, too, that at times will give up some hits, but is able to kind of work his way out of it. And he's not a huge strikeout pitcher. You look at that Winthrop, it's really kind of an anomaly. Because like the games after that, like Villanova, he had 2 punch-outs, Xavier 3, and he only worked 3.2 innings against Xavier. 1 strikeout against Creighton, Seton Hall, and some of these are relief appearances. One strikeout against Seton Hall, and none against Georgetown here, but 5 against Georgetown. But my point being is he's not a big strikeout pitcher. In 67.1 innings pitched, guys, he has walked 24 and struck out 44. So we are going to have an opportunity to put the ball in play against him. And he's averaging right at a hit per inning, 67 hits and 67 won. So I think the batting average against is something that kind of helps us here. And again, we've got some guys here that have struggled lately kind of picking up spin and having the opportunity to put a ball in play. And so when you've got a guy that's going to pound the strike zone that's not a big strikeout pitcher, and again, that double-digit strikeout game against Winthrop, the only one of the year for him. But see if we can expand the stats here. It's so interesting getting on the computer sometimes doesn't work out. But 263, that's the average against. And among the regulars, that's among the highest batting average against on the team. They've got a couple relievers that a little bit higher average. Got 3-4 guys that have thrown some significant innings that have a batting average of 300 or better against. So I think you're going to get pitches to hit here. And I think you're going to have a guy, too, that probably doesn't have dynamic stuff that gets a ton of swing and miss. Typically what that means is guys like him are guys that get under barrels. They make you hit he makes you hit his pitch, and then you're in a position then where you got to make sure that you get on top of it with some velocity, or you're going to be able to just kind of roll that thing out there for a routine ground ball. And this is a team that's pretty good defensively, not great, but it's an interesting pick for me. Again, I was told Pesco was really a dude for them. And again, the only thing that I can factor here is that he didn't have a great week last week. Maybe there's a little something wrong. Maybe they decided to give him a little more rest here. We'll see. But I do expect Holster to start, and I do think Mississippi State will put the ball in play against them. I don't know how many of these teams they've played hit with the same exit velo we do. I would suspect not very many. And so maybe this is a chance for Hunter Hines to kind of really get back on track as a left-hander facing a right-hander that doesn't get a lot of swing and miss. So Hunter should have an opportunity to put some balls in play. And I just think it's a matter of time before Hunter takes off. And I'm going to be very interested to see what we do with the lineup. Does Hunter go back to 4th? I don't know. Does he stay at 7? Do you hide him down there in the reeds? Hyzak's been so hot, you'd like to see him get a few more at-bats. Maybe him hitting 3rd is probably the way to go because he can hit a breaking ball. So I'm curious to see what the lineup looks like. And, we'll have the game with Virginia and Penn in the morning, and then there'll be a lengthy break there as they get the field ready. And then 6 p.m. Mississippi State time is when your Bulldogs are prepared to hit the field. So should have plenty of time to kind of get the first game done. We'll do a quick notebook on that. We're not going to just do a full recap on that game tomorrow. I guess technically it's today. But we're going to kind of get to work there and kind of see what we can see about the next opponent for Mississippi State, whether that be Penn or Virginia. So let's move on to our next segment of the show, brought to you by closewithblair.com. Blair Chandler, our friend in the mortgage industry. Blair's been doing this a long time. And when you're going to do something as serious as your mortgage, you need to deal with experience. You need somebody that can be your advocate with underwriting. You need somebody to go fight for you. That's Blair Chandler, 23 years of experience. And Blair's a guy, too, recently made the move to Priority One Mortgage. But the same level of service followed him over there. Give him a call or text today at 601-500-2344. Again, at 601-500-2344. It goes directly to Blair. Okay, not a call center, not a receptionist, not a personal assistant. It goes directly to Blair Chandler. So you can text if you need to. Say, hey, Blair, give me a hit back. I'd like to talk to you about getting a loan. Maybe I'm looking for a game day condo. That could be more affordable than you think. because Blair's a guy that can help you kind of move some things around and put a plan together. Because maybe you're looking to downsize and retire to Stargell when you're done. So it'd be nice to go ahead and kind of get that lined up and already have a place, and you can just start decorating that and getting it the way you want it. So when you do retire, all that's already done for you, right? Or maybe you're looking for your first home. Maybe life is just kind of beginning for you. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe you get your college degree. Maybe you're going to be buying a condo. I don't know your needs, but I know this. Blair Chandler can help you fill those needs. Again, it's closewithblair.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about kind of what the SEC looks like. I think it's going to be an interesting day. And I feel good about where we are, as a league. And I really like the fact that we have so many of these SEC versus ACC matchups that are kind of set up for day 2. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. But, starting out, Kentucky, the 1 seed in Lexington, will play Western Michigan. The Broncos, we played them in football. You got to like Kentucky there. I mean, you do. LSU goes in as a 2 in a Chapel Hill regional, and I think North Carolina is probably laying awake tonight, worried about that. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. And they get Wofford as a 3. It's interesting that Wofford is a 3, to be quite honest with you. It really is. But LSU will absolutely destroy these guys. It's interesting that North Carolina elects to play their first game at night rather than during the day. There are a lot of teams that like to play, including Mississippi State, likes to play the early game because if there's weather, there's a extended ball game, you get extra innings or whatever, and you lose, you got to turn right back around and play the next morning. And so everything changes, right? Everything changes. And so North Carolina going to play the late game, LSU the early game. They'll be playing at the same time we are. Just down the road there. At Chapel Hill. All right, Coastal Carolina against Vanderbilt. This is the early game in the Clemson Regional. Vandy and Coastal, and Coastal's a team. There's another team closer to them that probably should have got it in over them, but that team didn't have representation on the committee. I'm not going to shut up about it. Might even go back and revisit it once the College World Series is over. But I like Vandy here. I don't know the Vandy pitching matchup. Coastal's a little gritty team. They're one of these programs that, they get some of these players that maybe got recruited by UNC and Wake, but maybe didn't get the offer. And so they're kind of bubble Power 5 guys, and they've built a nice program there. But I just think Vanderbilt's going to be too much. And Vanderbilt's got some guys on there that maybe don't hit a ton of home runs, but there's some pretty polished hitters. Again, I'm a big Vastine fan. I think he's a really good player. Some people say he stands out because there's not a lot of stars on this team. I think he stands out anyway. The numbers are the numbers. Grambling's going to play Texas A&M. That game is scheduled to start at noon Central. It may be over at 1 Central. I think A&M's going to do whatever they want to in this ball game. I am happy, though, that Grambling is getting a trip. And the reason that I say that, and of course there's not a lot of teams in the Deep South that are hosting. Matter of fact, none. There are no teams in the Deep South hosting. I don't know that you would consider Knoxville or Athens the Deep South. I don't. I know that's southern and beneath the Mason-Dixon line, but I don't consider that the Deep South. It's kind of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. But Grambling gets a trip and out to A&M. And so glad to see that. Of course, there's always a possibility if LSU had hosted, they would have shipped them down there. I've always felt like many of these 4 seeds get absolutely shafted. Army, another team with representation on the committee, they're headed to Georgia. It's going to be the early game there. I think Georgia will do Army. Maybe Army can keep it competitive for a while. I just don't expect anything there. We'll pick Georgia. So James Madison's going to take on South Carolina. James Madison went to Fayetteville earlier this year and won a game. Maybe you didn't know that. It's a true story. But South Carolina is really playing well right now. I was very impressed with them in the SEC tournament. And just kind of being around Mark Kingston, there's an energy with that group right now. I think maybe they felt like, hey, we had to go to Hoover and prove something after a 13-17 regular season slate in the SEC. I think they did. They really did. Of course, it was a wild game with them and LSU, but nevertheless, I think South Carolina's playing well. I expect South Carolina to take care of James Madison. I actually picked South Carolina to win this regional, to upset NC State. I've said this on multiple shows lately. We had a little bit of a glitch there, so I apologize for that. But we're talking about Arkansas and Southeast Missouri here. I really think that Arkansas is the most vulnerable of the top 8 seeds. And a lot of people thought we kind of got shafted with the being paired up with those guys. And I just don't think that's the case. I think we've got a good chance to go to Arkansas and win that region.
Hey, Bulldog fans, you know we love dogs. We do. I got a bunch of them. One of the things that you ask yourself, well, why are so many dogs suffering with health issues these days? Well, one of our favorites, actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she's seen more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing some research, she feels like there's one place we can look to support our dog's health: their food. So she decided to create something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. Superfood Complete is made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on our planet, including several superfoods vital to our dog's health. Badlands Ranch also supports the Jason Dubas Heigl Foundation, which has helped rescue thousands of dogs and place them in loving homes. So I had the opportunity to try this out with my dogs. They have absolutely loved it. What's amazing to me, I've got 5 dogs and 3 live inside. But what's so crazy is like when I decided to kind of mix in some of the superfood with their regular food, right? To this, you want to make the big change there. After a couple of days of me working in this Superfood Complete, they would leave their food and come to the bag. They absolutely love it. I'm eager to see how it affects their performance and their health, but I can tell you this, my dogs absolutely love Superfood Complete. Go to badlandsranch.com/boneyard and order right now to get 50% off your regular priced order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to Badlands, that's BADLANDS, ranch.com/boneyard today.
I think I've got it cleared up now. I think. But anyway, I think Arkansas, again, is a very vulnerable top 8. And many of our fans are like, oh my gosh, we have to go to Arkansas again. And listen, I get that on paper. That's probably very difficult to think about. But think about the fact that we should have won the series up there the first time without Nate Dahm and without Connor Heisack. And now you've got those guys back and you start thinking, hey, if Nate gets us 3 innings in Fayetteville, that's a series dub. If Connor Heisack is there, considering how many runners we left on base and how many times that spot came up in the order, that's a series dub, possibly a sweep. And I would love to get another shot at those guys. And I know that you guys are going to show up and be a part of that too. But I just don't think that there is a lot to worry about with Arkansas. Of course, we've got to get there. And there's no guarantee that Arkansas is going to win. I think they win for big on Friday against Southeast Missouri State. And then we'll see what happens. I mean, Louisiana Tech's kind of sexy. I don't think Tech can get them twice. I think it's got to be a collaborative effort here, right? I think, maybe Kansas State's got to get a dub. And then maybe Louisiana Tech's got to get a dub. But I think if Arkansas gets into the losers bracket, it's going to be very difficult for them, even with this kind of manageable regional. But there's just not a lot of offense with Arkansas. And if they ever get into a situation where they run into a hot pitcher, it could be interesting. Not to mention if Arkansas loses that regional and we win ours, super regional in Stark Vegas. But let's not get the cart before the horse here. All right, Florida, Nebraska can get underway at 2 o'clock. That's going to be in the Stillwater Regional. Nebraska has played well as of late. I'm going to pick Florida to win this thing, but I won't be the least bit surprised if Nebraska does. Again, there's a talent differential here that favors Florida, but Nebraska's playing well. Now, let's not forget Florida went 0-1 in Hoover. Played really well against Georgia, and then got to Hoover and just really couldn't get it done. Another interesting game that's going to take place at night down in Tallahassee, Central Florida and Alabama. I like this Alabama offense. I was very impressed with them when we saw them, and to be honest with you, there's no outs in that lineup. I think the Tennessee lineup is the best. I think the Vandy lineup is really good. But Alabama might be the second best offensive lineup that we faced and I don't just say that because of the fact that we beat them, but there's just not a lot of dead spots in that order. And now Hamiter seems to be getting healthy. That's good news for this Alabama team. I won't be the least bit surprised if Alabama goes into a regional final with Florida State here. I think most people are expecting it. And you say, but Steve, it's a 1 versus 2 matchup. I get that aspect of it. I just think Alabama is a little better than people are giving them credit for. They didn't play well down the stretch, but they're in the tournament, right? They're in the tournament, and they're going to play Florida State, again, the final number 8. I don't know. Northern Kentucky, the Norse, going to be taking on the Vols of Tennessee. Now, this won't be a game at all. They're going to play it at night, which is always kind of interesting. But, they haven't hosted a lot of regionals there at Tennessee, historically. And they're still trying to kind of elevate that program. The fan support has been tremendous for the Volunteers. And so I kind of get that aspect of it. Let's play the game under the lights. We expect to win against a 4. And so we'll probably be playing again on Saturday night. And so that's probably not a ball game that's going to be worth watching, to be honest with you. I think you'll probably want to flip around and kind of see what else is available out there. But that's kind of how I see the SEC on Friday. And then, again, tomorrow night we'll come back and we'll look at how the day went, and then we'll look at what is to come. But I suspect what you're going to see is every SEC team win on Friday and advance to a winner's bracket game on Saturday. And that's not a hot take there. But the one game that I look at and it's kind of like, it's that Florida-Nebraska game. If Florida gets caught looking ahead to Oklahoma State, Nebraska's capable of beating those guys. They are. They certainly are. And so I think that's part of this thing that we all – in football, I don't really cheer for anybody else, right? I mean, it's like the money's already spent, right? And so unless we get a bunch of teams to the national championship to the playoff, there's really no benefit in rooting for those teams. Baseball's a little bit different, for me anyway. Maybe you see it differently. I don't want to see everybody go to Omaha, even though it's going to happen anyway. But early in this thing, I think it shows the conference strength when we win a bunch of regionals and get to the supers. And, of course, they got a lot of us paired up. But we could have as many as a half dozen teams. I think maybe even – I don't know if we can get 7. We get half dozen teams. And I truly believe if State survives Charlottesville, then we're going to go to Omaha. And it sounds crazy to say that. But I think it's not about being the best team in the country at this point. It's about being the best team in your regional. And so when I think about having to play Virginia here, it's not the raucous atmosphere that you're going to see at Lindsey Nelson or at Ole Miss or at LSU, and certainly not at Arkansas. And so this is a crowd that really wants to be entertained rather than be a participant in the game. And so I think what you're going to see, and I think you'll be proud of this, I think the Bulldogs are going to be able to handle this road environment with ease. Now, I'm not saying we're going to win the games with ease. I just don't think that – I think it's going to be a much more docile atmosphere than what they're used to. You can go up there and you can shut Arkansas up. And, Florida, not a lot of people there, but it's a pretty good atmosphere, all things considered. And I like the new ballpark. I really do. But I think this UVA group is a little different. I think this crowd is a little different. And this is a very, very good hitting team. And we'll talk more about them should the Bulldogs play them. But I think it's very interesting to think about what we do in the SEC and what everybody else does. And sometimes we just kind of assume that everybody is like us. And you heard Jay Johnson say it when I asked him at the Hoover press conference. One of these things is not like the other. And he said, listen, I coached at Arizona. I've been here for 3 years. I can tell you now that I've been here, and there's just nothing like the SEC. Now, real quickly here, we'll kind of look ahead. Just a couple things here. Looking at some team statistics, right? Probably would have been a good content opportunity for us. But, when I think about, and I don't want to overlook St. John's, but when you think about team batting average for Virginia, they're number 2 in the country. Yeah. You know who number 1 is, by the way? It's Austin Peay. As a team, they're hitting 359. Virginia's hitting 341. It's true. It's true. That's always, the thing you think about, right? You don't expect a Power 5 team to be right there. And Wofford, and we talked about Wofford and LSU. Wofford's 3rd Jackson State is 4. You expect some of these teams, these mid-majors, as everybody likes to call them, they come from minor conferences, and it's like everybody's scared to say it. But guys, 8 of the top 10 schools in batting average are from G5 programs. They really are. It's Austin Peay, Jackson State, Alabama State, Northern Kentucky. The Norse can play Tennessee, and everybody's going to hype up that team batting average, but it's quality of competition. And I think you're going to see more of that with the transfer portal. If some guys that maybe go play on the Power 5 level and say, you know what, I can't get on the field, so I'm going to go down. So you get fringe Power 5 guys going down. So that's something to kind of watch. But you got to think Virginia has faced quality competition. So they swung the bats really well. And again, we'll spend some time talking about them should State play them. They got to give a pin. And listen, stranger things have happened. Just kind of call it for what it is. Stranger things have happened. But, I think as we sit here tonight, I think like you guys, it'll be Virginia and Mississippi State. Not that St. John's isn't capable of beating Mississippi State, but they have the 109th batting average in the country. So a little bit different, right? But you know who's right there with them? It's Vanderbilt, a team that's been somewhat challenged offensively, but has played better competition. And so, again, we expect Cal to go out there, and if Cal is on his game and Cal is shoving, and he rarely walks people anyway, but if he's able to locate, you feel really good about how things kind of look for Mississippi State. And so I think, too, this Caholster thing is interesting, as we've discussed already. And what we really need, too, from Cal is, if Cal can give us 7. You want to get out of there with the lead. If that means you got to get out in the 6, you got to get out in the 6. But this could be a 5-game weekend, and that's going to exhaust the depth on everybody. And so it's like, hey, you can win this thing in 3, or you can win this thing in 5. There's really not anything in between, right? You win Friday and Saturday. I guess you could win in 4 technically, but you get in a situation there. If you lose early, you got to work your way back through the losers bracket. But I'd like to be able to get out of here in 3 games. I think everybody would. But it all starts with St. John's. Every bit of it starts with St. John's, and then we kind of look ahead here to kind of what's next. But, again, we'll be back tomorrow night and talk about those things. But I do want to spend a little time talking about a couple other topics. Okay, this segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. Campus Bookmart, always been good to us, man. I was down there earlier this week. Matter of fact, I was there this morning, or yesterday morning, whichever one you want to call it. I had to drop off a fresh case of When the Bottom Falls. So if you need to get a copy from them, you're ordering some gear online, you can get a signed copy of When the Bottom Falls from Campus Bookmart. But, man, they've got some new gear in there and a lot of baseball gear. Mom, we're going to be heading on vacation. Everybody needs new Mississippi State outfits to go rep the brand while they're out. And so I encourage you, as always, to shop at a Starkville business, Campus Bookmart. And if you can't make the town, and I got a big hug from Susie today. She may not offer you one, but it's worth asking, okay? But you can shop online at campusbookmart.net, and by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Okay, how do we feel about the Egg Bowl on Friday? Traditionally it's been on Thanksgiving. Sometimes it's Saturday, but it's going to be on Friday. It's going to be that matinee game, the afternoon game on Friday. I've seen some varying opinions here. I don't really care when we play it, but I will say it is kind of nice to have Thanksgiving with the family. And as a guy that covers Mississippi State, it's very difficult to do that. I usually go down and have dinner at my sister Kim's house there in Kent, and then we kind of hurry back. But even that's kind of a rush visit. I know many of you tailgate on campus for Thanksgiving, and so many of you have been nice enough to invite us to come enjoy the festivities with you and your families. You're all very kind. But I kind of like the Black Friday Egg Bowl. I know many of you like to go out shopping, so you've got a decision to make. And I've seen some people complaining, I'm going to have to work that day. I don't know if you have vacation days or not, or they're not permissible during that time of year. But I would encourage you to take that. But it is a different dynamic. Again, I don't really care when we play the ball game. It's all the same to me. But I just wonder, from a national standpoint, we always talk about national brand recognition, and that's one of the selling points for us on Thanksgiving. Do we get the same level of recognition on Friday? I don't know. I would say probably not. Playing Thursday night really is the only game in the country. You've got a lot of eyeballs on you, and when you win that ball game, how many times does something weird happen, it becomes national news? Will that be the case on that Friday? Probably not. Probably not. And on Saturday, it kind of gets washed up in a sports cycle as well. I've liked having a game on Thanksgiving. One of the reasons I like, too, having them on Thursday or Friday is we get to watch college football on Saturday, Rivalry Saturday. We're not a part of that because we've already played our game. And so I like that aspect of it, but I have seen your opinions, and I can't argue against any of them because I think you all make some very valid points. Yes, it's good to have it on Friday because we get the benefit of Thanksgiving with our families, but there are other people that are like, well, now I can't even watch the game, much less go to the game. That's difficult. I get it. We're never going to have it perfectly positioned for anybody, right, or for everybody. Saturday is probably the day that everybody can make it. You don't have a choice to make about Thanksgiving, and I know many of you ladies especially, you gear up with your daughters, your sisters, or whoever, and you go out and do some Black Friday shopping in advance of Christmas. And so there's a conflict there. It's true, but it will be different. Now, one of the things that I have seen so many people talk about, and I agree with this, it's going to be very difficult to get players, recruits to campus for a Friday game. And at times it was difficult on Thursday, but there are other people that say, hey, I'm going to go. When we were teenagers, we'd probably prefer to go to a football game at night anyway than hang out with the family. I'll just kind of calling it like it is. But what is it going to do to our recruits? Because a lot of them are still going to be playing football, right? And so if they're on winning teams and still playing games, they're not coming to Starkville. They're not coming to Oxford either. But you understand my point. And so I can see the pros and cons of this thing all the way around. To me, the two things that you have to really consider outside of actually winning the game is what kind of crowd are you going to have that could impact the crowd. An afternoon start, the day after Thanksgiving. Many people travel for Thanksgiving to go see grandmother and grandfather and aunts and uncles, and maybe that's an out-of-state trip, and you got to hustle back for Friday, or you have to work on Friday. I think we could see, because of the afternoon start and it being on Friday, I think we could see a less than capacity crowd. It's traditionally pretty well attended. I think we all know that. But what about parents of football players, right, of the Friday night guys, right? If you have a kid that's playing an important game in high school, you're not going to skip that to go to the Egg Bowl. You're just not. Now, many people would say, you know what, Steve, we're kind of local, so we'll go to that game and then we'll hightail it to high school. But I think the burden on fans on the Friday game is a little bit challenged, right? It'd be one thing if it was a night game, but because it is an afternoon game, I think we're going to have a challenge getting people to come to the ball game. Now, of course, if we win, it makes a big difference. You think, hey, I'll just change my plans. We'll shop another day, or we'll do Cyber Monday or whatever. But when you couple that in with the recruiting aspect of it, it's just kind of a curious decision for me. And it may not even been our decision, right? It may be something that was kind of dictated to us by the league or by ESPN. And of course, everybody has to sign off on it. But the reality of it is that it'll be a much different dynamic. It's a lot to consider. And there's no way to make everybody happy. But honestly, I think Friday might be the worst day to do it. I really do. I think Friday afternoon especially may be the worst time to play the game. And I'm not being critical of anybody. We'll try it and see how it goes. I'm always open to new suggestions. But I think there's just a lot of conflict, or potential scheduling conflict with fans and recruits on that day. That's my feeling. I'd like to know yours. And so maybe tweet me or whatever. And, maybe we'll do an article with that. I'm just curious to see how people are. There are some people that are just kind of true maroon and say, you know what, Steve, I'm going to come no matter what happens, And we applaud you for it. It doesn't make you necessarily better fans than other people that may have a family conflict. But I just am very curious to see what you think about the Egg Bowl on Friday, specifically the afternoon slot. Again, it'd be a little different deal, but if you've got kids in the band or kids that are cheerleaders in high school, you've got a decision to make, and that may be a very difficult one to make for some. Some people say, you know what, Steve, I'm not going to miss. I'll just go watch it on my phone or watch the game at home, and then we'll go watch our high schoolers perform at their respective ball games, because you don't get that time back. You don't get it back at Mississippi State. But the thing about that is that you're not claiming Mississippi State on your taxes. You're not investing your life, or you shouldn't be. You should be investing your life into your children. And so I just think that's rather perplexing in many respects. And again, not being critical, but we'll try and see how it goes. But I think it could open up some problems that maybe are unintended consequences. Okay, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. And BJ tells me that business has really picked up since they began advertising on the Boneyard. A lot of people are inquiring, thinking, hey, you know what? We want to be there for ball game weekends. We want to take that in at Mississippi State. And you can take advantage of that too, right? And even if you're not thinking about a football weekend, maybe you're just thinking, maybe all year long you thought, man, wouldn't it be great to get everybody together under one roof? Now let's just break bread and have a good time, play some games, watch some movies, whatever. Just enjoy being together. It doesn't matter if it's a family event, a friends event, and maybe that's something to consider Friendsgiving, right? Everybody just come, maybe it's a couples event, maybe it's your college friends. I don't know, but there's not a better place to stay in the Golden Triangle than the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, that great big back porch area. Got a fire pit out there, full service kitchen. Got a wet bar, so if you want to enjoy an adult beverage, you can. You can stock the kitchen with groceries, and everybody can take turns cooking. Or maybe just mom wants to do it. Maybe mom wants to get the kids in there, and everybody just kind of pitch in. Let's have a nice big feast. Yeah, how about that? That's a good way to go. Or maybe you've got a work group, and you think, man, we got to get 5 hotel rooms. How about no? How about everybody stay at Stark Vegas Clubhouse? That way you know where everybody is, right? You don't have to go track Bob down because Bob has gone missing or Bob went back to the rooms not answering his phone. Everybody's there. It's a great place to bring a work group, whether you're working midweek in the Golden Triangle or perhaps working weekends. Consider the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Now, when you Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, their Facebook page is going to come up and you can peruse through defined selections. Look at the pictures there and look at all the amenities that are available to you. In addition to that, you're going to see some booking options pop up. Airbnb, VRBO, and of course the Evolve website. If you book to the Evolve website, use promo code BSR10. I'm giving you 10% off. Yeah, just by listening to this show, we'll give you 10% off your stay at the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. The renovated clubhouse of the old country club, just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. You can do all your tailgating there and then pack everybody up. Head to Davis Wade Stadium. There we go. Okay, I want to talk to you guys a little bit. So we have secured the domain name. I've worked with licensing at Mississippi State. I won't give you the domain name just yet because they're in the process now of setting up pre-orders for the new book, The Dude, The Life and Times of Duty Noble. This has been an absolutely incredible project for me. I have learned so much, and I was speaking to a couple of Mississippi State staff members today, and I said, I'm happy and sad at the same time. I'm happy to finish this book and get it out to you guys because I have learned so much, and I can't wait for you guys to see what all I have dug up. Historical stuff about Mississippi State. One of the stories that I want to talk to you about is in chapter 22. I'm not going to give the whole thing away, but there is a character that was extremely wealthy, one of the wealthiest men in Mississippi. He happened to be a former Mississippi State quarterback named Bob Sanders. 1917 was his year. And so Bob initially enrolled at Sewanee, lasted a semester, figured out it wasn't for him, went to Mercer for 3 years, and then to Mississippi State to finalize his college career. But he was a Bulldog. And he loved Mississippi State. He absolutely loved Mississippi State. There's no question about that. But the wealthier he got, the more he contributed to Mississippi State. And not just state. I mean, he was involved with a lot of projects around the student union at Mississippi State. He was in charge of a committee to raise $1 million as seed money for the student union. And he gave $100,000 of his own money. He's like, hey, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. So this is a guy, not only did he have substantial wealth, he was very, very generous when it came to Mississippi State and many other projects around the state. Great man in many respects. But he was also a guy, too, that got a little power hungry. And it's not just about Bob Sanders, but the chapter really details not only the final days of Alan McKean and how Alan McKean really was a man without a country, and one of the worst mistakes we ever made. And as you guys have seen on Twitter or on Facebook, I've shared that. I actually have held Alan McKean's resignation letter in my hand, his handwritten letter that he wrote to Dudy Noble, just kind of closing it out. I'm resigning. And let's be completely honest about this. He didn't resign. Okay, he didn't resign. And some of the malcontents within the fan base were after him for years, even though he was winning. Felt that his offense was too antiquated, and we want to go out. We got to go get a wing T coach. We got to get a wing T guy. And so we went and hired Slick Morton. And then we didn't win a game. That shouldn't be a big surprise. Slick Morton was 5-5 at Southeastern. He was 9-8-1 at VMI, and we just felt like, hey, he was a former LSU assistant, LSU player, and state championship quarterback in Louisiana. Surely we'll get it right. But he was a guy that was essentially hired by our alums. And it was terrible. He was absolutely terrible, as we get a little background noise here at the hotel. It was terrible. And so there were a lot of people involved in that could not accept blame. There were a lot of people that forced Slick Morton and basically made the decision for the athletic department, because President Mitchell at the time was like, hey, things have gotten kind of tenuous between the athletic department and some of our fans. We're going to give them a voice in this coaching surge. And that proved to be an absolute unmitigated disaster. Absolutely unmitigated disaster. And you'd say, but Steve, why would we do that? Well, we didn't have a TV deal back then. There was no media package. We were very much relying on ticket sales and private donations. And so all of a sudden you have people that are basically your primary benefactors when it comes to your athletics program. They're saying, hey, I want to do this, or I'm going to put my financial support. So in many respects, President Mitchell and Dudy Noble were very reliant on these people. And they took advantage of that. And so after Slick Morton was fired, and again, it was an unmitigated disaster. Absolutely terrible situation. It was terrible. Poor Jackie Parker, right? So then after Slick didn't win, some of these same people that led to the greatest mistake in Mississippi State athletics history, that pushed Alan McKean out, they're like, well, if our hand-chosen coach didn't work, it's got to be Dudy Noble's fault. Well, then they went after Noble, and President Mitchell backed up Dudy Noble. Well, then they didn't get what they want from President Mitchell, so they went to the State College Board, and the State College Board elected to take no action. And then they went to the State Senate, and there was all these allegations. It was so incredibly tacky, and it was such a shameful time in our university's history. And I think it's important to kind of acknowledge kind of who did what and what happened. And so when it was all said and done, everything kind of worked out the way that it should have. But it took such a toll on Mississippi State, especially on the football side. And we talk about there's so many people that saw Mississippi State as a stepping stone job. But that wasn't the case until after we fired Alan McKean. It really wasn't. Now, you go back to Major Ralph Safsey. Of course, he had 3 great years at Mississippi State. He did. And then he had some health issues. Had to resign. We kind of drifted in the wilderness there for a year with Spike Nelson, but then we go out and hire Alan McKean. And we almost hired one of the best coaches in all of college football, and he would have come. However, we couldn't work things out contractually with his previous school. You'll read about that. Probably a story you don't know. But Dudy Noble hired Alan McKean, and it was a very unpopular hire. And so he took Alan McKean on a tour of the state to all the big alumni groups, let him speak and let him sell himself. But the best way to sell yourself is to win. That's what we want. We want to win, right? But there were some people that felt like we weren't winning enough, even though we went to our won our first bowl game, went to our second bowl game and won it. We won our only SEC championship. And then, we went 8-2 a couple of years and like, well, hey, we're slipping. After we fired Alan McKean, the next six coaches combined didn't win an Egg Bowl. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. And for those of you that lived through that, let me tell you, you're better people than me, because I don't know that I could have gone through a scenario where we win the 46th Egg Bowl and we don't win another one until Bob Tyler gets here. It's true. I guess it's Paul Davis. But you kind of understand my point there, right? So we win in 46 and don't win again in 1964. We had a tie in 63. We had 3 ties during that stretch. And when we tied the Egg Bowl, we used to have the Egg Bowl trophy for 6 months out of the year. But for us to hold it for a full year, it just didn't happen very often. And there was, listen, McKean made some mistakes, but the reality of it is then all of a sudden, we bring Murray Warmoth back, former Bulldog assistant. He comes here, wins for 2 years, and then he gets a job at Minnesota, and what does he do? He wins a national championship. Well, then we bring Darrell Royal back in, a former Bulldog assistant. He wins for 2 years, and then leaves for Washington, and ultimately lands in Texas and wins 3 national championships. And so it's apparent to me that Dudy Noble had very good interviewing skills and the ability to kind of evaluate, because he hired Alan McKean, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the SEC and certainly at Mississippi State. And then he goes out and hires 2 guys that ultimately went on to win national championships. We had another coach prior to that, Bernie Bierman. They won multiple national championships at Minnesota. And so we had a good run with coaches, and then all of a sudden we couldn't get anybody. We always had to get coordinators and things like that. And a lot of people have wondered, well, when did that change? Well, that's when it changed. Not only did we not win Egg Bowls, we became the perception about Mississippi State, because we had limited resources, we had fans that didn't always travel, and then a lot of that's not laziness, it's just the fact that we just couldn't afford to do it. And so things changed for us. And I've always been fascinated by this Alan McKean story. I got Harper Davis to talk to me about it in Alpha Dogs. And God rest his soul, what a great man he was, him and his brother Art both. And both of those guys were great players for Mississippi State. Art, a former SEC player of the year. Both those guys mentioned in the book, obviously. But when you begin to think about, hey, this Alan McKean thing, and a lot of you guys don't know all the details. I mean, I don't know them all either, but I know a lot of them. And you're going to learn a lot about that story. But I share that because, the descendants of that discourse are still alive. Right? The people that were involved in, again, probably the most shameful period in our school's history, that spirit's still alive. And so I share that because we're getting ready to play an NCAA regional, and I have seen some people that have stopped short of saying that, but they've kind of implied that they're rooting against us because they really want to see Chris Lemonis fired. The only guy that's won a national championship in team sports at Mississippi State. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that the last 2 years are completely wiped away. There's no excuse for what we've endured. But the reality of it is we're back. We have an opportunity now to play our way to Omaha. We've got to be better than 3 teams this weekend. And I think we're better than St. John's. We're certainly better than Penn. And I think we are at best or at worst equal to Virginia. We're playing them in their yard. Is Virginia as good as Tennessee? We lost to them by 1 run. Are they as good as A&M? We beat those guys twice. I would say no. So we have a very good chance to escape this weekend, and then we'll see what happens in that Fayetteville bracket. If Arkansas loses that regional, we'll play a super in Starkville. And if not, we'll go to Arkansas, a place that we should have won a series earlier this year. And so what I'm asking us to do, and I'm asking, okay, I'm not going to sit here and guilt anybody into it. Can we set aside our differences for just a couple of weeks here? Because I feel like if we get to Omaha, everybody will be like, okay, I'm good, But if we find a way to win a regional and set up a super, okay, we're going to finish in the top 16 in the country, and we certainly are one of the top 16 teams in the country in my estimation. But can we just pull for the Bulldogs? And I wrote a story earlier this week, and still getting messages about it, called It Really Is a Family. And the centerpiece of all that was Stan Horton, who kind of rose to prominence in Mississippi State Twitter because of his positivity. And then we got 10-run ruled out there in Hoover, and he's like, hey, we're going to be fine. Everybody relax, we're going to be fine. And then we were. We were fine. And we lost Stan to a drowning accident a couple years ago, 3 years ago, Memorial Day weekend, on Memorial Day. And it's a very sad story, that part of it is. But the way that our people have kind of rallied around that family, and I've heard from some of Stan's really good friends since I wrote that story to kind of give us an update, on Hannah and little Stan, and we cheer for them. They're part of our family. And I say that because, and I mentioned this in the article, coaches come and go. They do. Players come and go. And players are coming and going a lot more regularly these days because of the transfer portal. But we're always here, right? We choose to be Mississippi State fans. You could choose to cheer for somebody else. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have gone to Mississippi State that aren't sports fans. A lot of other people that came here because of a major, because of a certain professor or whatever. They wanted to get educated by them. And maybe their college allegiance lies elsewhere. But for those of us that are Bulldogs, whether you're born into this, maybe you chose this, you could drop it tomorrow, right? But I'm just asking, through this tournament, can we just get behind the Bulldogs? Can we lock arms together, and kind of say, hey, you know what? The past is the past. I'm going to focus on what is. And at the end of the year, if it didn't meet my expectations, then I can say that. But I'm not going to sit here and root against the Bulldogs so I can be right. And any time that I have to root against Mississippi State to be right, that's a me issue, not a Mississippi State issue. Because I am never going to be in a position where Mississippi State has to lose a game for me able to declare some type of superiority over people. It's like, well, I was smarter than you because I picked this loss. I told you guys we were going to lose. And there's a lot of that. And some of it's a coping mechanism. I share that with some people in our administration from time to time. Like, I don't understand. I say, well, there's a lot of people out there that want to lay the groundwork to come back later and say, I told you so. And so it's a win either way. Either we win, they're happy if we win, but if we lose, they can say, I told you so. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say, I told you so when Mississippi State loses. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so I'm not going to try to shame or guilt anybody in anything. I'm just going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, for the betterment of our program and for the betterment of our family and our fan base, through this baseball tournament, can we kind of keep the negative talk on pause a little bit? You got all off season to complain. But like, if we go out there and don't have a good start against St. John's, let's say we don't, let's say we come back and win. It's, and it's like all of a sudden, well, so-and-so's not hitting and so-and-so's striking out. Let's not try to find, a black cloud in a blue sky. If we win a ball game, we've won a ball game. And no ball games mean more than the ones we're about to play. And so I just ask that, as a lifelong Bulldog, as a guy that was born into this family, and a guy that my children, I got 2 children that are alums and one that's a student, and everybody was raised to be a Bulldog. And so I'm as true maroon as they come, guys. And I know many of you kind of share the same attributes that I do. And I'm not going to sit here again and tell you that you should forget the last 2 years. And listen, Chris Simonis had an obligation to get this thing turned around. He also had the opportunity to do it because Zach Selman said, you know what, we're going to give him a chance here to fix this. And he has. And it's interesting that I read some people have already begun the shift to next year. Like some of the people at the beginning of this year that said we're going to be terrible, we'll have a coaching change. Well, now it's like, well, next year we're going to be terrible. Can we finish this year? Can we get through the portal transfer recruiting season? Can we do that? But before we even get to that, can we focus on the games at hand? I'm just asking. We all love Mississippi State. We all claim to be Bulldogs to the core. And so despite our differences, let's just all pull together here for the Bulldogs, and maybe we'll be rewarded with something pretty special. Remind you guys, too, if you hadn't done so, go to winnabottomfalls.com, and very, very soon you'll be able to pre-order. They're in the process of doing it right now. I may be on the show tomorrow night telling you, okay, at 1 o'clock tomorrow, go, right? Because, again, limited edition type stuff. There's some things they got to figure out. But the website, it's the regular website. We just added another URL. For you guys to find it. But it's, you go to Win the Bottom Falls, you're going to be able to order the dude there too. And there will be a URL for the dude specific. But it's the same website that's been around for years. So if you've been there before, you kind of know what we're talking about. But those limited edition books, there's only going to be, I guess, 180 to 200 of those. we expect those to go the first couple of days. So if you want that book, and it is going to be more expensive than a regular book because there's going to be a lot of cool features with it, and you need to get on it quick. And let me tell you, too, the lovely bride is back home in Starkville running a spa. She would love to be here with me in Charlottesville, but business comes first, and we talked several times today, and it's one thing we talk about. She's, I'm so jealous you're going, and she loves baseball as much as I do, and as many as you do. So if you're back in Starkville, maybe go float and cheer her up a little bit. She'll be wearing a Mississippi State baseball jersey all weekend because we wear Bulldog stuff on game day. And there is some availability. Today was a busy day. Yesterday was a really busy day. But, we've got some availability this weekend. And you can go to TrueRest.com or just call her at 662-268-7601. And she can get you in there. And we'll get you floating, get you relaxed, man. If you got chronic pain or anxiety, maybe it's something we can help you with. She's a registered nurse, too. So if you have medical questions as they relate to floating, she can help you with that, too. And there are going to be some conditions, too, that I wouldn't know about. That she's going to say, hey, you need to consult your doctor before you float. It's a true story. So True Rest has been great for us. I think it could be great for you, too. So be sure and check that out. We're also going to try to work in a Dude Effect show at some point this weekend. We'll see when time permits, and I'll let you guys know. But we'll try to do something this weekend just to kind of keep you abreast of things. But again, a Boneyard every night this weekend, time permitting. If something happens and we have an elongated ball game, it's going to be tough for me to get up here. But that's the plan. So you'll have the Friday morning show, you'll have a Saturday morning show, and a Sunday morning show. So instead of getting one bonus show, you're going to get two, possibly three. We'll discuss, see how things play out. But that's the plan. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.